Hello and welcome to Fallthrough, your source for deep conversations about software, technology, and computing. I'm your host, Kris Brando, also known as Scriptable, and on today's episode, we have, as of right now, just myself and Jamie, but maybe also Matt and maybe also Dylan. Weird scheduling problems today, but we are going to chat about the proposal. It's a big thing. We're going to have a little bit Go-focused episode. We're going to talk about GopherCons, because there was GopherCon US a couple weeks ago. There was GopherCon UK this week, but I guess, not last week, if you're listening to this when it gets released, because it's going out for another week. And we're going to talk about open source and community and, how agents have changed things and all of that stuff. As per usual, we will have bonus content for our supporters. If you're not a supporter, you should head over to fallthrough.fm/subscribe and sign up to become one today. And if you haven't followed us on social media, please give us a follow there. We're at fallthroughfm. And if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And one more thing, we have a new show. It's called Continue. We're going to be talking about Go proposals. The first episode is out. Maybe the second episode is out by the time we ship this. So head on over to continue.show and check that out as well. Now let's get into the show. Hello, viewer/listener. Welcome back to Fallthrough. As I said, we've got Jamie today. It's been a minute. Super excited to have Jamie on. Jamie, how are you doing today?
I'm not too bad, thanks. I'm a little bit toasty. It is 30 degrees here in the UK. Just like literally this morning, got back from GopherCon UK. So tired and toasty, but otherwise not too bad, thanks.
Nice. Yeah, that's 86 in Fahrenheit. Okay. That is quite warm. Although I think it's about the same here. It's like 80 or so. But I know you all in the north aren't used to the heat as much. Oh, perfect.
Hey, Matt.
And Matt's here now. I literally just did the intro, so you haven't.
Oh, perfect. Look at that. I just know it. I'm like the genie. Say my name. Bam.
How are you doing?
I'm
today,
good, man. I was gonna say I can't be. I went to bed at like 3 a.m. The baby woke up at like 5 a.m. We're good. I don't have bags under my eyes. You have bags under your eyes.
It's not the. You said that on Wednesday when we recorded.
Yeah,
so.
She slept into Wednesday. She didn't sleep well, and then Wednesday into Thursday she slept 10 hours, and she was great. So yesterday we should have recorded because I was great yesterday, and then today she's like, "Nah, I'm gonna wake up at 5 and sing you the song of my people."
Oh goodness.
No,
children.
she's great. But it's like, you look at her and then she's just like, ah, and she like laughs. And then you're like, oh, well, I guess I can't hate you, right? I guess I have to love you.
The things that babies do to people's brains is absolutely insane.
Yeah. It's like you are legitimately angry because you're just like, yo, can you just sleep for another hour? And then she's just like, ah, ah, all happy, giggling. And then you're just like, nothing matters. You're great.
Yeah. If only we could capture that and use it on people ad hoc. Like, oh, you look
I need that in a drug.
Here.
Like a real drug.
Yeah. Although I guess they do make some drugs that do that. Some prescription drugs. I mean, they make other drugs that do that. Yeah, I was telling Jamie before we started recording about Continue and about that proposal, the 69559.
Yep.
And then it links to 69420. And
you know what's funny about that too is that I said nice when you said 69 for the first one, and I didn't even see 69420 until I read it. So like it just naturally flowed into that part of the joke. I didn't set that up at all.
It was literally just sitting there. I was like, wait, what do you look at the background? What are you talking about? I look at it. I'm like, oh.
Like it's just perfect. It's one of those things in life that just line up and you're like, nice.
And it's talking about add and hatch to the standard library. So again, like if there was going to be a good issue number 69420, I feel like we got a good one. I feel that was a good one. It wasn't some weird throwaway one. Or some like or some purposeful joke. It's nice when it's just accidental.
Exactly.
So. But yeah, we're not here to talk about nice issue numbers.
We're not here to be nice or talk about nice.
That was the other one. That's why we told you only the nicest of proposals.
Got you. I gotta set my dial today. Where am I? Am I spicy or not? I don't know where I am today.
I don't know. We were spicy in the last episode, so we got to be. That's why you have Jamie. You know, if you want to reduce the spice, you bring in an Englishman. That's what you do.
I mean, I guess that's true.
Yeah, they have the spice. They just don't. They don't bring it out that much. Actually, I don't know. British people can be spicy. It's just in a very. It's in a very particular way. You're like, okay, this is spice, but it's not like, you know, it's not like what we were doing on the podcast last week. And it's funny because Jamie hasn't heard that yet because it doesn't go out till tomorrow. So yeah, it's a good one though. I think that the episode we recorded on Wednesday is a good one. I'm
just trying to get canceled at this point. Whatever.
Yeah, when it makes it through post, it never sounds as ridiculous as when we're saying it, when we're in the moment.
Oh, okay.
I was like, oh, I was much more reasonable. We were much more reasonable than I thought we were when we recorded. It's a regular occurrence. I guess we need to turn up the spice a bit. Get close to cancel. Speaking of engagement, we got a proposal that we're going to chat about, or proposal for a new proposal process. It needs better branding. It needs a better name. Proposal sounds weird, but we talked about it a little bit last week that Austin, the Go team tech lead, I guess we can call it that, put up a discussion. So I guess it's not technically a proposal, even though it's a proposal for a new proposal. It's weird. I think that's part of the point here is that the proposal process is quite messy at the moment, but they put up a proposal to make a new proposal, or not make a new proposal, to refine the proposal process so the proposal process is better. And Matt and I had a chat about it in the last episode. But that part was for supporters only because it did get a little spicy. And I was like, we need more perspectives on this. And I was like, who would have a good perspective on this? I was like, Jamie would have a good perspective on this. So as a quick recap, the proposal is essentially a small revamp to the current process, because the current process for proposals basically put a proposal up on GitHub in the issues in the Golang/Go issue. I don't even know what to call it, but the issues on GitHub, basically. You had a proposal and there's discussion around it, and there's a committee of people who I don't really remember the membership of, but I think it's mostly people that work at Google that once a week will go through and review proposals and, you know, give commentary back and then move them through this process of saying, okay, they'll maybe accept this, likely accept this, likely decline this. Different statuses. There's some structure around waiting periods and final comment periods. So that's kind of the structure we have right now. The problem is that proposal review committee is very small. So it is, and they only meet like once a week. So it's very difficult for them to actually get through the bulk of proposals in a timely manner. And so what's been happening, according to Austin, is that there is a 23% year-over-year growth of proposals that are just sitting in the backlog, waiting to be either discussed or waiting for the proposal committee to actually review them. And so this process, this new proposal is about attempting to fix that part of the process by doing things like involving the community more through voting. So like the emoji reactions you can have on GitHub, that's a suggested way of basically voting on issues. Having more proposal committees essentially by splitting them into tracks, adding a triage group that is weighted toward letting things through by their voting system, with the goal of like trying to route proposals more effectively to the different proposal review committees, and then potentially eventually maybe removing entirely the main proposal review committee that they have now. For now, the proposal is to keep it there and have it be like the final gate before things go into the language. The proposal does not address things like how to deal with the current rather massive, like 800 proposal backlog. And it also does not deal with the problem of proposals that have been accepted but are waiting for implementation, which is also a growing queue. So that's sort of the summary of the proposal itself for now. And there's also a bunch of discussion going on around it. So, Matt, we've sort of heard from you a little bit about this. Hopefully you've read it by now. Jamie, I want to get your initial thoughts on this proposal.
LGTM, ship it, done. Like, it's an easy one. I mean, my initial reaction was like, oh, that was so long. Like, I'm gonna have to break this out into like multiple readings, and like I do appreciate that there's a lot of data in it, and that does really help with trying to get an actual idea about like how bad the problem is. So like over the years, I haven't really interacted too much with the proposal process. It's largely through podcasts who are talking about different proposals. I'll maybe go in and have a look. But for the most part, not really actually being part of that proposal process, aside from maybe one thing I proposed. But yeah, so it's interesting seeing from their point of view where they're seeing some of the issues. I have heard from many people some of the issues they have with the proposal process. And I think one of the other interesting things that hopefully I provide some useful insight into is it's not quite as big as Go, but one of the open source projects I run, Renovate, we have a similar sort of process where we have a whole load of things that people want doing. We do not have the people power to be able to triage all of them. I had a look just before this. We've got currently 1,700 things open to be triaged just for here's a feature request, let alone several thousand of, hey, I think there's a bug here which may turn into a feature request. And so, yeah, like I do see this as a problem, especially when you've got a small team who are trying to work through it. Do I think them trying to formalize and add a bit more into this is a really good idea? I think having that initial triage round to then get it into the point where maybe some more specialized groups will go and review it, it's good, and hopefully will break up a little bit. I think as we talked like on the pre-call and people are calling out in the discussion, it's a little bit like, well, who are those people? Like, what are the criteria to be part of that? And if it ends up being the same sort of people who are currently reviewing everything, does it really change too much? How do we get more people from the community into that? Is it largely going to be people from Google? Yeah, so quite a long answer to say there's definitely some merit to it. I don't know in practice what it's going to look like. Yeah.
I think that's a very reasoned. It's again, British spicy. A little spice there. Very, very well delivered, I think. Matt, have you formed any new thoughts?
I love that you think that I read this proposal. I hate to let you down, but I have to let you down because my yesterday was very busy and I could not read this proposal. So I am the problem. I'm willing to admit that to our listeners. I'm sorry. However, I won't be spicy about the proposal. I will just say that I see parallels with the proposal and general program, product, project management in companies where there is a huge backlog of things that we can do. And there are a lot of inputs to decide what we should do. And it's hard to weigh those inputs to decide what we actually should be doing. And that's it. That's why that's why we have this proposals, because the Go team has decided that the backlog was untenable and they figured adding or changing the process will help trim that backlog. I'm skeptical. I've never seen additional process work in that regard. But I don't want to say like, the Go team is making the wrong decision because I haven't read the proposal, nor have I experienced their problems, like specifically their problems, because I didn't read all 2,000 odd proposals or whatever there are. It's also like not my problem, bro. You know what I mean? Like, let me know. From the outside perspective, not really the outside perspective, but from the community perspective, I just want to see like the top 10 proposals that are like about to go forward or something, so that I, as a community member, can like weigh in on it. That's it. I don't want to help prune your backlog. Like, I hate to say it that way, but yeah, like a company's roadmap. If I'm going to work with a company or buy your product, I don't want to hear what you could do. I want to hear like what you're actively prioritizing and going to do, so I can see like, does that align how I'm going to use your product or not? And if there's things that are like not on that roadmap, can our agreement to purchase your product influence that and say, hey, like, by the way, I know you're not thinking about this, but we really need this, and we would love for you to like bump this in priority. That's all I want. Same thing would Go. Like, that's what the users want. They want the ability to say like, hey, generic methods, we need generic methods. Like, let's get this going. And finally we got it going, right? But there are other things like that we should also be getting going.
Yeah. I still think, because I've thought about it more over the last couple of days, I still think the fundamental problem is that like, you have to have people that know how to and want to run process if you're going to add more process. Like the problem right now, I think, is that they don't really want to do this. It seems like there is that line, and I don't like leaning so heavily into like a particular line in a proposal, but there is that line or that paragraph that's just kind of like, nobody wants to spend more time on this, so I don't know what we're gonna do. And what I do find interesting too is that like there is an easy way to make it so that the proposal review committee at least spends less time on this, and it is to raise the bar and the barrier to having them even look at a proposal, which I also think would be more useful in general. Because if our favorite proposal to talk about in recent times, that UUID proposal, like, part of the discourse problems, I also went back and like reread parts of that, so I got to like refresh my memory. Parts of the problem with that proposal is that it seemed like that was, I think perhaps in the Go team's mind, they saw that as like an easy win of like here's a thing we can ship, it'll be in the release notes, yay. And the community was like, but no, we actually want to get this right, because it's actually a quite important thing. And I mean, even the Go team seems to have entered that conversation with the complete wrong perspective. I mean, they were going to put under crypto, right? So that tells you that they didn't really understand UUIDs. They also, were like, SHA-1 is insecure. And it's like, not for this use case. It's broken in a very particular use case that's over there. This is a different one, which also is why it shouldn't go under crypto. And there were a lot of very authoritative statements in that of like, we're not going to do this, or like randomness is not state, or things like that. And it was earlier I guess it was like not really early in the conversation, but it was in a part of the conversation when things weren't settled. And I was like, okay, you're making a lot of assertions here that are not founded, and also that are not true, because you did change your mind. And the things you said we're not going to do, you did wind up doing. And I think part of that is because they have so much of a backlog that they're trying to get through, and so much of an active, like, working proposals that they're trying to get through, that they have a tendency to try and to reduce conversation in parts where they can, which is an understandable reaction, but will not, in fact, help you with a growing backlog, because that means people are going to nope out of the process, which is just going to make it worse. And have the downside of perhaps letting proposals through that are broken because there was not enough discussion around them, which I think is also a thing that has happened recently. Or things that just, you just don't use the proposal process at all. Like, what was the when they decided to change the the Go version that got put in the Go mod by default in 1.26, because it's like, oh, it should be the minimum that it will support. And then it's like, but if you do that, you can't use the new features because the compiler, because the go.mod says 125 and not 126. You can't use the 126 stuff. This is weird. That seems like something that probably should have been a proposal, even if it was a small one. And I have confidence in the Go community that we probably would have been able to figure that out through discussion. And that wouldn't have wound up in the language and have to like immediately ripped out of the tool chain because it was causing problems for people. And it's like, if you don't, like my worry with a lot of this, especially since there's an aspect of it that's the controversy level that they're trying to ascertain before a conversation has even happened. And like things that are like low controversy kind of get through faster, and they have like these kind of fast tracks for certain things. It's like, oh, everybody's just going to try and argue why their proposal is actually one of those fast track things. Like this is like we have seen this in so many places. Like this is going to be a mess. Same thing with like the triage group becoming the de facto like worst version of the proposal committee. And there's like voting stuff that's supposed to help with that, but that also seems like it's going to be quite messy. I think there is already a problem with emoji reactions and sort of like dog piling on people. Like as I was reading through some of the discussions, like somebody would say something that is like maybe unpopular, and then people like dogpile them with thumbs down and sad faces. Or if like someone else calls somebody out, like in some of those code of conduct citations, there's like 50 thumbs up on it. And it's like, this is real rude and we need to not dogpile. And they're like, oh, well, we're just not going to have thumbs down in the voting. And there's going to be some people whose votes count more than other people. And I'm like, none of this is not good. Like maybe go read a book on civics, or like go read some books on democracies, because all of this does not bode well. I mean, like,
and sorry, I guess just on that point, like, is it even a democracy? So is the sort of thing like, if they're happy calling it as, actually, no, this isn't really community backed, it is a Google project, then at least that would be honest about it. And again, like, I think that would be interesting. And then it's, how democratically organized can we be as a community? While also cases like, okay, if it's just the number of upvotes, we see how many people create dozens of GitHub accounts a day to like spam things with OpenClaw, and I'm regularly receiving a lot of spam from different things. So it's the sort of thing like, well, if you can just do that, you can upvote your things, or if you start dogpiling on people, the loudest voices then win. And so you have to be really careful about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I think that is an open question of like, is this a democracy? I think the Go team would say the way the system is structured, the answer to that is sort of no, but also the answer to that can't actually be no, because if it becomes a Google project, I think that it will get forked. Like, I think that we're at a point where there's enough big companies that care enough about this thing, where if the Go team kind of openly says, yeah, we just get to decide everything at the end of the day. Because it's been undertones for years now, right? Like the +1 from a Google are required to merge anything into the Go tool chain, right? Like all of that undercurrent has been there, and everybody's, I think, just kind of dealt with it, been upset about it, but dealt with it. And there's been like small forks, like when Microsoft did their distribution of Go so they could put FIPS into it, FIPS compliance into it. So there's been small little experience on that. But I think if the Go team were just like, nope, this is all about us, we're not really going to listen to the community, which is sort of, there's an undertone of that in this, of you can vote, but they wrapped it in, we still have to, the design still has to make sense. And it's like, well, who's going to decide if the design makes sense? Like, clearly you all will, so even if the community disagrees, you're still going to do what you want to do. But they can't, I don't think they can say that out loud, because if they say it out loud, then it becomes real, and then community is probably going to get pretty annoyed at that. And other companies will get very worried about that, because Google does have a very big habit of just canceling projects willy-nilly. Where at least right now, the community is positioned in such a way that if Google did decide to just disband the Go team, there are ways that we could take over, the community could take over and run stuff. But yeah, it's weird because and also I think it's fine if the Go team does want to be like the ultimate deciders on things for the Go toolchain itself, right? Because at the end of the day, I think I said this in the last episode, where like the only thing that Go team controls is the language specification. Like everything else, there's alternatives for, right? There's TinyGo, there's alternative compilers, there's Tamago, which is like kind of like an alternative distribution that puts bare metal support into it. For the standard library, there's obviously a whole bunch of different other libraries. There's other build tool chains, like obviously like Go rules from Bazel, and like I think Panzerbuck or one of the other ones also has their own rules system for how to compile Go. So like the ecosystem is pretty distributed. So the main thing the Go team controls is the language specification, and then the default tool chain that we're all using. But that's just the default. We could switch to a different one if we all wanted to. So I think there's like a lot less that the Go team controls than people think. But I think the other underlying problem here is that we as a community have really imparted a lot of authority onto the Go team that I don't think they wanted, and that I don't think they actually need to have. Like people look to them for official answers on things, and I'm like, this is not a type of language or type of project that needs or has official answers. Like this is not good, and the Go team has tried to fulfill that in recent years, and I think that's part of the problem here. But like how this all relates to the proposal process, the proposal for a better proposal process, is that I think the Go team really just needs to step back from a lot of things and protect their time. And this is not a proposal for them to do that, which is the thing that worries me. Because the proposal that we actually need is one where I said, in the last episode I did say, and I still stand by this, that like there just needs to be a gate before the Go team will even get involved. And that's not to say the Go team members can't participate, but before like some official apparatus gets involved with anything in the proposal process, there needs to be like a quality gate, and there needs to be like a set number of people or a set group of people who are going to do the work on it. Like you need to have a shepherd, you need to have somebody that ideally more than one person that's going to be responsible for like actually ushering the proposal through the process, like making sure that there's not just discussion happening, but that we're coming to consensus, that there's cohesion, that we're compromising, that we're doing all the things that make for good design and good discussion. And then you also need to have allocated resources to implement the thing. And this process is like missing both of those. So it's kind of like trying to fix the middle part of the proposal process, even though that's just like putting a bigger pipe between two smaller pipes, right? Like it's like you still have this large influx of proposals coming in, and there hasn't been anything to deal with. How do we deal with that? And then there's also just a bunch of stuff sitting in the queue waiting to be implemented. And there's not a lot of how do we actually deal with that? It's a lot of, well, once new things come in, that's when we'll be able to figure out how to deal with, like maybe get them through faster. But again, there's no proposal here for how to clear that 800 item backlog.
I have a solution for that.
You can't just close it.
So you definitely can close it.
They'll just reopen them.
Let them reopen them, and then make it your policy that if it's not actively driven forward by someone, it's going to get closed again. Like, I think the development community, I think is like, they're like safe. They feel like GitHub issues are like their little safe blanket where, oh, I found a problem in software. I'm not going to go fix it right now, or nobody's going to go fix it right now. Nobody wants to own it, but I'm going to put this issue up there, and everyone feels happy that it's tracked, that there's an issue somewhere. But that issue, even though it's 5 years old, is as useless as anything else because nobody's working on it. It's still an issue. It's still a problem in the product. I don't want to have a 5-year-old issue. I want to know, is anyone going to work on this or not? And like that's the problem. But it makes us feel happy that like, oh yeah, there's a proposal there somewhere. It might be 7 years old or whatever, but it's there. So like, we'll get to it eventually. No, you won't. You won't get to it. You won't get to it eventually because you've proven that you won't get to it in the past 7 years. So how about we just be honest with ourselves and close that thing until we find someone that can actually shepherd it forward. Like
I don't know. That UUID proposal was open like 3-4 years ago. And it just got merged in the language. So I think that empirically you're wrong. but like I get what you're saying.
But someone shepherded forward. Like it could have easily been closed like 2 years ago, and someone said, "Hey, you know what? I'm ready to tackle this now."
I mean, it was originally closed and then reopened, but yeah.
Like that's fine. I'm not saying to delete these things. You can still find them, but let's be honest about ourselves that this is closed. Nobody's working on it. We have no intention of doing this anytime soon. Closing this. Feel free to reopen if you need it. Because then it makes the backlog more tenable. It makes it jump. It can drop the backlog from thousands of proposals to tens or hundreds, and say, here's the things we're working on. Everything else, not on the table.
Yeah, but then you have to deal with the backlog somehow, and that is dealing with the backlog. But then you also decide what things you can close, because you can't just close all of them. You can't just like close the ones that have been open for years, because there's ones that have been open for years that are actively being worked on. Like, in order to do what you want to do, Matt, you'd have to actually triage the backlog, which is the thing that we're talking about doing.
I mean,
so like your solution isn't as simple as you make it seem, sir.
Then triage the backlog. Like I go through the backlog of my team's issues. I've triaged them. I've closed things that I'm like, we're not doing this. Like we're not going to do this in the next like year. This is closed. If we need to do it in the future, we will rediscuss it and reopen it. And by that time, the ask will probably have changed anyway. So bye, flick, just flick it out of there. But yeah, I triage the backlog. But isn't that your job as a Go team to triage the backlog? Then you got to make a decision. Either stop accepting public proposals so that your backlog stops growing, and say, hey, only you need to meet these qualifications before you can submit a proposal or whatever. Or get people to triage this stuff. Or both.
I have had like a visceral reaction to that, which is I'm a little bit of a hoarder, so having like all the issues and stuff still there is quite nice to know that they're there. Like I do agree with a lot of it. So for instance, like with Renovate, so we have currently got So currently got 961 open issues. And so these are things that we have actually triaged and said, yes, we are actually going to do this at some point. The issue there is like some of these things are many years old because they're things that no one has got around to doing. We also have at least 2,000 things, or at least 1,700 things that are potentially features that we should pick up. And then up to about 8,000 things that could be like bugs that we need to go and fix. And yeah, like one of the issues is the time. So yes, like, oh yeah, we could triage it. And yes, we definitely should be doing that at some point. But then even if we have triaged everything and we have like a backlog, we then need to prioritize that. Sometimes that changes as well. And like, at least with us specifically as a project, we don't have a roadmap. Our roadmap is what we're doing today. And so there are like some broad strokes that the company that's behind it, we do have things that we are like, okay, this is stuff that we want to get done. As the maintainers, we have things that we're like, you know what, we kind of need to do these things at some point soon. But there isn't like any clear roadmappy thing because we're regularly releasing and don't really have like that sort of cadence. And I think, yeah, we are different to a lot of software projects. But also like the Go project isn't that special with some of these things. I think one of the problems I think is there is a difference between who's doing the triaging of things and who is doing the implementation. And so a lot of the things may be an accepted proposal, but it just takes time for someone to be interested in actually driving that through. Sometimes there are ones where you have a few people who are like, oh yeah, I'll do that. Oh yeah. And then you have multiple change lists. So actually compare against. But also sometimes there are cases where lots of people want it done but aren't willing to do the work. And that can also be a little bit of a smell. Is it a case that, people just aren't interested in doing that work? Is it that the process is painful enough that no one actually wants to go through that? Is it that their agent just hasn't woken up today yet and can't go off and do it? I think that's the other thing, where if we have so many things that have been accepted at one point in time, but they haven't yet been implemented, are they that important? Do we actually need to keep them around? And my gut feel is yes, we need to keep everything around all the time because it's nice to have them. But as you say, like getting someone to re-raise it years later when we actually do have more context and more understanding. And actually, at that point, there may be a subtle and not so subtle distinction between what we'd originally said, oh yeah, this looks good, to now, and it's like, oh yeah, everything has changed. Like there's no point doing the UUID as an example. Like maybe what we'd originally said wouldn't have worked. Yeah.
I know this is not easy. Like I do. I'm not trying to sit here and say like I have the magic bullet, and you please use it. I'm just saying like be honest about what you reasonably have time to do within the next couple quarters. You know what I mean? Like if you're realistically not going to get to something for 5 years, then it might as well just not be an issue because it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like by 5 years, people probably won't even use the project in 5 years. You know what I mean? So might as well just say like, honestly, nah, we're not going to do this. And like, just be honest about it. And that's kind of where I'm at, where there are pie in the sky things that we could all say like, this feels good and we want to do this eventually. But if it were important enough, we'd get it done the same way we get the other things that we're doing done because they're important enough. So like find out what's the difference between the things you're actually doing and the things that are on the backlog that you want to do, and like make that very visible to the community. So the community can see like, oh, okay, out of the 961 issues on Renovate, these 37 are the ones that are actively going to be worked on in the next like quarter. So if I'm a Renovate user, I can be like, oh, cool. That issue is on that list. I'm confident that Renovate's gonna actually get it, rather than like my issue is a 5-year-old issue. Let me hope that they get to it. They're not gonna get to it, dude. Like, sorry, I don't want to burst your bubble. They're not gonna get to it. Just making that more. And I know that's hard. I totally get that's hard. And it's more than just triage. It's active participation in the development process and like the roadmap building process. And this is just traditional work that developers don't want to do. Developers want to build. They don't want to think about what to build next.
I mean, I don't know if that's true. I think that's the perception we have. I think that for a very long time, the reward system in our industry has been like the one who produces the code is the ideal one, and everybody else is just like meh. But I think there's a lot of people that really enjoy the discussion part of it, right? Part of this problem, I think, is with the quality of proposal that's going through the process. And there's not enough space in the community, or there's not enough encouragement. Like I'll bring up that UUID discussion between Pato and I think his name is Martin. So they were like, Pato was basically saying, I really want to add generators, and I think was having some struggle with communicating why he found generators so important. And then this other user, apparently Mart, was like, okay, like let me engage with you. And then instead of saying, oh, I disagree, first said, let me restate what I see as your proposal, as what you want to do. And then he laid that out. And then he said, if this is right, here are my opinions. But if it's wrong, ignore this part and let's get like actually correct on what you're actually suggesting. And they had a few exchanges of that. And then they came to a better design, I think, at the end of the day, for the generator pattern that Pata was looking for, and a better way of explaining that pattern. And that was like some really healthy discourse, but it's in like a sea of noise, a sea of not healthy discourse around it. And that discourse that happened was never the thing that was pointed out and encouraged. Because I think part of the problem, or I would say, I'll say the problem with the proposal process right now is that there's too much reliance on the Go team as the arbiters, or the proposal review committee as the arbiters for not what gets accepted, but what gets discussed. And that, I think, is the central problem. Because part of this proposal is also like, even after an issue is closed, continue having commentary on it, continue having discussion on it. To which my question is, then why did we close it, right? If people are actively discussing a thing, then it's clearly not closed, and putting closed on it just discourages people from talking on it, but there's nothing against talking on it. So just leave it open and use labels. But I think the problem is that right now, because there's not enough discourse on these proposals, partly because of discoverability, partly because the proposal review committee has been rude to people, and I think that really turns people off from ever participating again, or has them reserve their time. Like, I've spoken to multiple people that are like, I don't really want to participate more in this process if this is how it's going to be. That decreases the amount of discourse, which then makes it so that there's more work for the proposal review committee to do to figure out if a proposal is actually like there enough to be shepherded, to actually be shepherded into implementation. So it's like, again, we just need to have more discussion, more discourse, which I think in general, developers like doing. Like, people like talking about stuff, especially if you get really nerdy about it and have very, precise and like, the technically correct conversations about how to do something. So it's like, let people just go wild in the comments until we've actually coalesced on something. And it's not like, we shouldn't be taking the code of conduct and then beating people over the head because they used a bad word we didn't like, or because we perceive they're not being civil. We should be using it to say, you're not participating in an honest way in this conversation. Like, you don't seem willing to have your mind changed, and that is dragging this whole conversation down. Don't do that, or please, either you can stop doing that, or you can like exit this discussion. And I think if you did that, we'd have much healthier discussion, and that would lead to higher quality proposals, or the decision like, hey, actually, this is probably not a good idea. And then we can actually close it out. And then there's an actual record with real discussion about why something was closed out. Because right now, things get closed and we don't really know why, because the proposal review committee just talked about it, and then they don't have good notes. So it's just like, I don't know, they decided, they had a little chat between the 6 of them or whatever, and decided that this feature isn't worth it. Or there's just like such a mess in the commentary and no summarization, no actual, like, no gardening or cleanup work done in the issue itself. So when new people enter, they're like, I'm not reading those 500 comments. I'm just going to drop what I think should happen here. And that's a reasonable thing to do, but then it adds so much more noise and it makes it so much more difficult to understand what's happening, and just makes the big issues even bigger. So like, half this problem, or I think the majority of this problem, is that we don't focus on the discourse itself. Like, right now, the proposal system is a means to an end to get something into the language. It's not a way for us as a community, as an ecosystem, to have discussions and have the output of that discussions, a byproduct of the discussions, be, oh, here's something that is ready for review to maybe be implemented into the language. And I think that's where the struggle is coming from. And for that, you do need like a sort of centralized place to have that discussion, because people got to be able to find it. And GitHub Issues is a great centralized place to at least store that, even if there's discovery surfaces elsewhere, even if there's like better reading, like better consumption systems elsewhere, having a place where it's like, oh, I go to this place and I know that I can see where the stuff is happening. It's like IETF mailing list, right? If you want to know what's going on with HTTP, you go to the HTTP working groups mailing list and you subscribe. And then you can participate in discussion, you can hop in, you can send emails, you can just be a part of that discussion. Like, that's the same sort of thing that Go needs. but also it needs to be open. It needs to not be like, we're going to close this thing out because we don't think it's worth talking about. If two people want to talk for 10 years on an issue, why do we care? Why do you feel the need that you got to step in and close it? Why do you feel the need to go in and say, we're not going to do this? Why do you think, person in leadership, person in power, that you need to involve yourself in this conversation at all if all you're going to say is no? Like, get out then. Let the people just talk. Let them talk. They might talk about something that becomes something productive. Maybe there's a small part of that will become something useful. You have no idea. If people want to sit there and talk about it, let them talk about it. And I don't see anything resembling that in this proposal. Like, there's nothing about how do we just, let people, if people want to spend their time on something, let them spend their time on something. There's nothing about protecting the Go team's time or protecting the proposal review committee's time in this. It's an attempt to do so without actually recognizing that is what actually needs to get done. And you do that by not involving yourself in stuff that you don't need to be involved in.
I'm not a big fan of using GitHub issues for that discussion personally, but I know there's not really much anything, like there's not really anything better either. Like GitHub discussions have their own sort of.
There's nothing better, and moving the entire community is a silly thing.
Yeah, no, I don't want to move the community either. I mean, I don't even know what the community is. I don't even know where the community is. Is it this? Is it the Slack? Is it the GitHub? I don't know where the community is. But like, there needs to be a distinction between like pie in the sky things that we're just like kind of discussing and things that we've actively said this is what's realistically going to be working on in the next quarter or so.
I mean, do we?
Otherwise, what's the roadmap? What's going to actually go forward?
I mean, the concept of a roadmap is a weird marketing thing that people do. Like, a reasonable roadmap is not a single road, which is what people visualize when they think of a roadmap. You're like, oh, here are the milestones. This is going to go and go 127 and go 128 and all this. But have you ever seen a roadmap? Roadmaps are messy. There's roads going everywhere. If you're like, how do I get from point A to B? There's like 40 different ways to get there. They are not fun things to look at, right? They're a planning tool. There's a way, this is the potential direction we could go. They're a way to guide yourself when you already know where you want to go. They're not a good tool for deciding where to go. And that's why we don't use actual roadmap or even the analog of roadmap here. We're using a road. Like what you're talking about is a road, right? There's a road and there's like, yes, 2 miles down the road. This is what's 2 miles down the road. Or you're like, we're going to build the destination we want 2 miles down the road, which is it's not a good analogy. That's why I'm questioning. I'm like, I don't.
That's fine.
I understand the sentiment of wanting to know what's going to be in the future of the language or the future of any project, but that is all speculative at best.
But then the pushback there can be, okay, we let these people discuss on an issue and spend their time there. When is it marked as someone's going to do this? Are we going to empower those people to actually move it forward? Like
that's where you put the process in, right? That's where you say, here are the requirements. Like I said in the last episode, and it was in support our own section, so I'll reiterate it, which is, you say you have to have, had a discussion. The discussion needs to have become cohesive, right? To at least some degree, and you have to decide what it means for the conversation to have, properly, come together. Some formal document needs to get written. You need to have some group of people, probably 2 or more. Having 1 is very dangerous here. So 2 more people that are willing to actually work and spend time on it. And then you need to have some implementer, right? And until you have those things, there is 0 point in even entertaining this thing as more than just a discussion among the community. Because if you don't have people committed to implementing it, then there's no point in getting it into accepted state. It'll just sit there and become problem later. If you don't have people committed to shepherding it, then clearly people don't care enough about this thing to invest their time, to invest in actually making sure that it moves forward. And if you haven't had enough of a discussion, then why is it being brought up as a thing for us to actually think about adding to the language yet? It needs to have been discussed deeply enough.
And that's basically what I'm getting at, is that those are 2 distinct things. Having the discussion is perfectly fine. I'm not advocating to close people's discussions. I'm saying to clearly delineate when that discussion is now something that is going to be shepherded forward by way of some like design doc or whatever that was written, by way of having named people that are going to see it forward from an implementation perspective. That's clearly different than, hey, we're just like spitballing on pie in the sky stuff. And both have their use cases, but right now both are conflated in the the proposal process. And I'm saying like, you need to figure out a way, not you, Kris, but like, the Go team needs to figure out a way to not conflate those two things and be very clear about, here are the things that are accepted with implementers and ready to rock, and here are the things that are just like still very early discussion. And it can't just be a label on the issue, because that doesn't enforce anything else about that. Where is the actual proposal? Who is going to actually implement this stuff? Where is that? This is why I said, like, you can close some of these things that haven't had active discussion, and they can reopen naturally if discussion, because that'll prompt people. People hate when their issues are closed. So if people do care about something enough, closing it's kind of a way to prompt them to say, hey, like, do you really care about this thing? Because I don't, right? Like, and then they're going to come back and go, hey, actually, I do care about that. Here's that. Okay, well, if you do care about this thing that I've just closed and that you want to reopen, we need a shepherd for it. So put the onus back on them to help get a shepherd, or like, let's talk about getting a shepherd for it. Otherwise, without a shepherd, this thing's going to die again and again and again.
I was going to say, that being said, like, there are a lot of open source projects that have like a stale bot, and it is so frustrating to constantly be like, yep, we're still interested in this. And it's like, well, okay, in 7 days we'll close it again. And like, I get your point about, well, if we have someone to shepherd it forward, that's good. Sometimes people go AFK for a bit. Sometimes it's a case of, okay, yeah, we're actually waiting for reviews, or yeah.
I mean, I also hate this. I don't have a stale bot either. I don't like the stale bot. I think that's a stupid thing, because that is, you're taking away the actual action of you thinking about this thing and whether or not it's truly going to be worked on or not. You're just using time as the way to gate that. And that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm not saying just like arbitrarily pick a date and close things. I'm saying, if you want to cut through your backlog, you can start there, but that's not the process. You know what I mean? Like, that can be your initial sort of provoking of getting people to be like, hey, like, oh man, my thing was closed. Let me actually revisit this. But that's not the process. I'm not saying, hey, Go team, everything that's older than 90 days last discussion, you close, right? That's not what I'm saying. But because I also hate that bumping. Oh, bump. Well, now when we do that, all we've done is muddied the conversation, because GitHub issues don't have like a concept of threading. So now you're just reading useless bump comments all day. And like, I'm not going to read that. That's frustrating. Like, I'm just saying that those things need to be deconflated, I guess. And it needs to be clear as like, what's actually, has the discussion done, has the document done, has the shepherds ready to implement this stuff, versus what's just, oh my God, I would like this, but don't care enough to do it.
I mean, it seems to me, this is a very me opinion, that like the thing we're missing are the lexicographers here, like the dictionary people or the librarians. Like, we're missing the people that will go around and organize the information, right? Because the thing you're expressing is like, hey, there's this issue sitting out there, and we have no idea what the status of it is. And if it's a dead conversation, we should probably close it, because closing it makes it so that the rest of the information out there can be surfaced more easily, right? Like, if you're closing it, it's like a way of doing garbage collection,
and also notifying the people that we're interested in it, saying, hey, like, that's a signal to them too. Like, if you really did want this, now's your, let's revisit it.
Yeah. But like, I think the problem there is that that's a very, very blunt signal, and that it doesn't, I mean, it's like a signal, but then again, people can still keep commenting on the thing even after it's closed. So it's like a weird instrument to use that I think misses the problem that's actually happening, where it's like both, it's hard to find this information. It's hard to surface what discussions are actually happening, and like if there's multiple discussions, the same discussion happening, how do we like unify that in some way without it being like, you don't want hard rules here, because hard rules become this process nightmare that we're dealing with now, where like process begets more process begets more process, and then it's all messy, and then you have stale bots, right? That's how you wind up with stale bots, is that eventually you're like, well, we're just going to close them after a while so we can get to inbox 0. Not because that's healthy, not because that's what we want to do, but that's because we've now given ourselves a directive that like this signal is the one we use to make sure that things are active, and if something's not active, we're going to close it out, which is on the other side quite annoying. But I also think that comes back to, you need ways for people to signal that they are interested in something continuing without it being a useless comment, right? That's why there's no +1 comments rule for a reason, right? Like, don't just comment to say +1. That muddies everything up. You can also say like, oh, don't just make ping or bump comments. We'll have some other mechanism of notifying people that say like, hey, did you remember this thing, right? You said you were going to get back to me and you didn't get back to me. Like that's a mechanism that's missing, but that's a mechanism that we can likely build here in some fashion on top of what's available in GitHub. Maybe it's a GitHub app, maybe it's, I don't know what it is, but there's likely a way that we can design this to solve that specific need. But like at the end of the day, like we're missing the shepherds, right? That's what the big thing here is. And the shepherd is not someone who's going to decide, whether this is good. There might not even be like a person who is expert or qualified to really be in like the actual discussing part of the discussion. They're like the person that's running the meeting being like, yeah, okay, like we got to keep moving. Let's keep doing this. Let's summarize this. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. The people that are doing the logistics work to actually make the process happen. Like that is missing right now. There isn't anybody to do that. And the people that are doing it are like the experts who are like very narrowly focused. Like if you look in a lot of discussions, it's the Go team or the proposal review committee saying, we're going to do this, we're not going to do this. Like, and when they do that, they're basically shutting down conversation, right? When they say, we're not doing generators, or when they say, we're not changing it from variables to functions, right? They're saying, we're trying to constrain the scope of this thing. And I think in particular, we're trying to constrain the scope of the conversation. But that's not what that role is supposed to be about. That role is supposed to be about, let's get us to consensus on this. Let's get us to cohesion on this. Because that's the way you get people to move on, right? Ultimately, like, if you shut somebody down without having them felt they've been heard, they're just going to keep bringing it up until they just leave, right? They're going to be like, I don't feel like I've been heard. They're going to do it. They're going to say, I don't think I've been heard. And they're going to articulate that until they felt they've been heard. And that's why cohesion is important. And in a community, people can bring that up for years and years and years and create a lot of noise. Or again, they will just peace out. And now you've lost someone extremely valuable who would want to contribute. So the goal has to be in these conversations, getting to cohesion. And the main way that at least I've seen you get to cohesion is by having someone who at least has the appearance of neutrality. And even if they don't have the appearance of neutrality, behaves in a neutral way so that you can get people to actually talk with each other and settle whatever the problem is, right? If someone feels they're not getting heard, make it so they do feel they've been heard. Even if the outcome is we're not going to do your thing, it can be we're not going to do your thing because there's X, Y, and Z that incorporate what you've actually said, so that you don't feel like you've been ignored or you don't feel like you've just been shut down. But again, that's a whole group of people, and the worst people to do this, again in my experience, are people that are expert in something, are the domain experts, because they have so much knowledge in their brain, and they say, oh, well, they have 1,000 thoughts about it, and they're like, yeah, this is why we got to close it. But then they don't articulate any of those. So then it just seems like you're closing the door in their face, even though that's not what you do. You just haven't communicated the reason why, because it's a lot of words to write sometimes. But like that makes it harder to have cohesion. That makes it harder to come to consensus. And that is what leads to this big, messy process where we're all like, whatever shall we do? It's like, it's hard to communicate if you don't have stable definitions of things. It's hard to communicate if you don't have a group of people that's actually trying to come to consensus and have cohesion. Because if all you're trying to do is convince if the game becomes, as I said in the last episode, if the game becomes you are here to convince the Go team of your idea, then the Go team becomes the arbiter of everything and people can't resolve discussions or conflicts on their own. And that will never scale. And like, as much as I feel for the Go team, they've got the proposal review committee. There are people that are not on the Go team on the proposal review committee. But as much as I feel for them, it's their own fault that they're in this situation because they put themselves in the center of it. And now they're like, wow, we're in the center of it and it sucks. It's like, yeah, maybe you should remove yourself from the center of it where you had no business being in the first place. So I understand the whole aspects of like, how do we fix the small mechanics of this? But I just can't unsee the fact that it's a much wider thing than any one mechanism, that closing the issues or getting rid of the backlog or any of that. That'll temporarily solve the problem. And then in 3 years, we'll have 1,000 issues again and then be like, let's crank this wheel one more time. Let's iterate this one more time and see if we can get it this time. Because that's where we are now. Like, it was a few years ago when we had the big overhaul of the proposal process. And that clearly didn't work because we're here again. So
I'm trying to think of what I want to say for this. Because like on one hand, like someone has to say yes or no to things eventually. Otherwise, it'll grow unbounded forever. Like the community is not going to say yes or no.
That's not necessarily true. I mean, the point I just made is that we have to come to consensus. Yes, that is true, but that's not someone. That is us as a group.
Yeah, but that doesn't always work in practice either. Like, you'll get issues that just are in discussion forever because the group can't come to a consensus on it. Like at some point, someone, and this happens in companies, right? Where you have teams that are deciding on like how to implement something or what to work on. At some point, some tech lead or whatever has to say like, we're doing it this way. I know there's options, but we're doing it this way or we're not doing this. Like someone has to say that. And maybe it has to be a singular someone, but there has to be a way of making that determination, because you just can't let the discussion go on in perpetuity either.
I mean, A, why not? But like B, if you want to have conversations come to an end, again, like you have to come to some consensus. Because again, at a company, sure, this works at a company and have one person that makes the decision because basically there's a form of authoritative control over everybody at that company, right? They can tell you, we're not going to talk about this anymore. And if you keep talking about it, we will remove you from this company.
Also, the company they're paying employees. They want to generate value from the employees, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, totally.
You can't do that. Like you can do that in the monetary economic system. But in the joy economy, which is where all of this exists, you can't do that because people will just keep doing it. They'll either remove themselves and be like, okay, if I can't have this conversation, I'm not going to participate, which is disastrous. That's part of the reason why we're here in the first place. Or you just have people that continually reopen the same thing, or like, I didn't get heard, and they just keep putting all their effort into it. Like there is no, I guess my point here is you cannot use authoritarian like ideology here, or a monarchy or an oligarchy ideology here to solve this type of problem, because at the end of the day, those people do not hold power over individuals in the way they can inside of an authoritarian regime or inside of a company, right? You are not entitled to tell other people what they get to do with their free time and in this type of community. So that means if you want to have an active and robust and diverse community with high quality discussions, you cannot have a single arbiter or any small group of people that decides when a conversation is done. The conversation is done when the people that are having it have decided it's done. And what we have to do, what the role of the leadership is in making sure that most of the time, the vast majority of the time, conversations can get to a done point, or at least if they continue for a long time, that they are healthy. Because I will point out that there are things in this language that have taken a decade of discussion. Like it took a decade for us to get generics effectively, right? And we were talking about it the entire time. There were so many proposals. And I think the way we implemented generics is actually pretty good. I don't think we would have gotten there if we were just continually like shutting down conversation and not letting people talk about it. Like the way we got there is by continually having discussions. The way we got to eventually deciding that we're not going to fix error handling with a syntactic fix is through years and years and years and years and years of discussion. Like some of the best things in this language came from people talking through something over and over and over in a conversation that felt like it was going to go on forever. And then eventually we found consensus. So if we're saying that there's one person that can shut everything down, we're saying that Go shouldn't have generics, essentially. We're saying that Go should have shoved try or some other error handling nonsense that definitely would have made the language worse into the language so that we could have just stopped having the conversation about it, right? Good, healthy communities have long conversations sometimes. It can take a very, very long time to actually get all the ideas through. What you want is productive conversations, right? You don't want to be spinning in circles. And that's what I'm saying. You need a way to shepherd the productive conversations.
And what I'm saying is like
ending them. It's not putting an arbiter. It's actually making sure they're moving.
And what I'm saying is there needs to be a way to differentiate things that are just in discussion versus things that we're committing to actually doing and working on.
I mean, I think that I get what you're saying. And part of me is like, yeah, the thing I suggested where you have like this gate for at least the Go team where they say, here's the gate of when it's that. But I also think that that's a line that you cannot define, right? It's not a definable line to say, oh, this thing has moved from discussion to something we're going to implement. It's an emergent property of the discussion. Oh, okay. It seems like we're all in consensus here. Let's move on to the implementation. Then someone pops up, hey, what about this? And then it shows back to conversation, right? It's a fluid back and forth thing. It's not what is traditionally thought of as waterfall, right? It's not like once you get through the gate, you're good. It's like sometimes things got to go back and something's got to go forward. Sometimes this one proposal that we're definitely going to accept it gets affected by a proposal that already got accepted and implemented. And now we got to go rethink this one, right? This is a very dynamic and fluid process. I think any attempt to like shut it down in a way or to draw a line somewhere, it's just not going to work. It's like when people say, oh, we have a dictionary that defines words, thinking that the definition in the dictionary is the correct one. It's like, no, the definition in the dictionary is the emergent one. We all define words simply by using them. That's how language works. And similarly with these discussions and things we want to implement, we won't know the point at which something is ready to be implemented until we've had the conversation and figured out that we have talked about enough to implement it, and there's someone that's going to go implement it. Like, that's the gate. That's the thing at the end of the day. If the Go team wants to have a special gate there or a special quality level before they'll even look at something, that's fine. Maybe they use LLMs for that, right? To have a little bot be like, does this have enough stuff in it for us to use our very, very little or a really resource constrained team on? Like, is this worth it yet? That's fine. But there also might be somebody else that just goes and says, I want to implement this thing, gets it patched, and then also provides it to the Go team, right? This is the thing with the decentralized community that we have, is that we just had to accept the fact that I don't think we can't centralize this. We can't make this an authoritarian or oligarchic system.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. But I also don't see how just like letting people discuss in perpetuity like solves the ever growing sort of backlog problem that the community is in today. You know what I mean? Like that's part of the problem. That's why they're proposing a proposal process again. Because there's no way, there hasn't been a way to come to consensus on these things.
But that's the question, right? Is that because we as a community do not possess the ability to have discourse in such a way that allows us to come to consensus on things? Or is it we've as a community been put in a position where the discourse just can't happen? Or it just continually happens and people don't like participate faithfully in the system.
I mean, it's both. There are people that don't know how to have discussions. Very, very evidenced in the proposal process.
And you know what? I will say it's the thing I kind of alluded to earlier. That's ideally why we have a code of conduct, right? I mean, the code of conduct right now is stupid because it's like be civil, and it's like whose definition of civil? Be charitable to people. Whose definition of charitable? But this is a place where you can be like, no, you have to be like, you You have to be engaging in the conversation in a productive way. Here's some of the ways we will assess if you as an individual are participating in a healthy way, right? Like a very easy one is you have to be open to having your mind changed. If you are in a conversation,
I mean,
and
you're asking for the impossible there.
I'm not asking for the impossible. I'm asking for us, and I'm saying that that's the rule we define. If you want, this is the same thing of like, this is why you can't have like the jerk who's the 10x engineer who's a jerk. Get rid of them. They are toxic to the team. They are going to slow everybody down because they have their opinions and they will argue forever about blah, 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 or they're making so much friction between everybody. It's not healthy. If you come into a community and you're not willing to have your mind changed, we can say as a community, you're not welcome here, right? We're not going to welcome people that are stuck in their ways and want everything their way and are unwilling to compromise, because that is how we get to this position, right? That is how we get to where we are now, is when people aren't willing to compromise, you can have productive discussions. So part of this is we have to have productive discussions, and we have to structure this around us having productive discussions. So yeah, part of it's probably going to be some sort of, I don't want to use the word code of conduct, but some like rules of discussion that are like, yeah, you have to have this sort of mindset. You have to demonstrate at times that you are willing to compromise. It's not just you can't just say, I'm willing to compromise. You actually have to demonstrate that you are. You have to actually move and shift yourself. Because if you don't do those things, once again, you can't solve this problem. There's no amount of process you can layer on here that's going to solve the problem without killing the community.
Jamie, I know Kris and I have been going at it, so I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, buddy.
No, it's interesting. Yeah, I'm still noodling it over. Thinking.
I'll give you time to noodle it. I mean, it's rough because you have some projects that have like a clear maintainer, and like we give the maintainers the ability to say no, so there is an authority there. But then Go is kind of straddling that world in a way. We have this concept of like a Go team maintainers that can say no, but then we have the community that should be able to propose things and come to a consensus, because like it's like those are your users, right? Like they're giving you feedback. Like if you were a business, if you were a company, then like you would want to hear from your customers, and you wouldn't tell your customers, hey, like don't have a discussion of like what features we should build in our product. Like that would be wrong to tell your customers that, because they're using your product and paying you, right? Like they should have a say and be brought into the discussion about like what's next. And if we were just to say, hey customer, no, sorry, closing your discussion, that would be a bad relationship we're building. But ultimately, it's the company's responsibility to communicate to the customer like resource and timeline stuff too. We can't just say to the customer yes to everything, and we can't say no to everything. We have to be honest with them and say, hey, you're asking for X, Y, and Z. We only really have the bandwidth to do this in the near future. Like, how does that look in your timelines? Is there a compromise we can get to? Like, we have to have those discussions. And to your point, Kris, that means reaching some consensus. Whether that consensus is, hey, actually, we're not going to implement the whole thing you want. We're only going to implement up to this, and like we'll revisit this later just because bandwidth. Like, but that is the compromise, the consensus part of it that we're kind of missing in the Go community. We don't really get that, and we kind of substitute it with the Go team saying yes or no and being the arbiter. And I guess what I'm trying to say is having an arbiter is important, but also not having an arbiter is important. And there's different contexts for them, because I wouldn't want like, I don't know, in Renovate's context, I'd want you to maintain the ability of the vision of the project, Jamie and your maintainers. I wouldn't want like the community to say, here's a vision for Renovate, you must do this. I'd still want the maintainers to be like, no, like that's not really aligning with our vision, and here's why. And you don't always have to have it to come to a consensus with that, right? It's like, imagine if someone submitted pull requests to SQLite or curl or whatever and saying, you should also like, be an asset tracking system. It's like, nah, bro, we're not doing that. Like we need the ability to say no, but also we need to foster good consensus and discussion when it's relevant to the project as well. And like, I don't think there's a solution for that, I guess.
Hello, viewer/listener. Thank you once again for listening to this episode of Fallthrough. I just want to remind you that there is an extended version of this episode where Matt, Jamie, and I get into some more nuance around this whole Go proposal thing. And that is available to our supporters. If you're not a supporter already, you should head over to fallthrough.fm/subscribe and sign up to become a supporter today. Not only do you get longer extended episodes and higher quality audio-only editions, you also help keep this podcast sustainable. Speaking of which, this episode is about Go Proposals, and we actually just launched a new show called Continue Go Proposals Edition, where Matt and I spend about half an hour going through the most interesting proposals, those that we think you should keep your eye on, those are kind of flying under the radar, along with some discussion of a select few proposals. If you want to stay on top of what's going on with Go Proposals, I encourage you to head on over to continue.show and sign up in your favorite podcast app. And if you signed up to be one of our supporters, you actually get an extra discussion of a proposal in each week's episode. And with that, let's head back to the show. And to hold us to our own values, right? Like, Austin got up on stage and in that proposal said that yes is forever. That thing that Rob Pike said a lot. That's, no is temporary, yes is forever. And then you look at the UUID thing and you're like, where is the yes is forever, right? There's not consensus here. So why are you saying yes? Oh, well, we think that this small API surface, if there's not consensus, why are we saying yes? You can just say no. If there's another Go release that doesn't have a UUID package, what changes? But if you have a release that has a UID package that's not the right shape, that's missing something, that's not great, that splinters the community, that's worse, which is where we're at now, right? I feel for the large number of people that are now going to have to explain to their teams, probably multiple times, why, actually, we got to go use this third-party library for UUIDs and not the standard library one because the standard library one doesn't support something we need. And they're going to have that conversation. It's going to be an argument people have over and over because that's happened so many times before. That's what happens with the flags package. But at least with the flags package, there's a reason why it's shaped the way it is. But, why are we adding a new library at this point that does the same thing? If our ethos is no is the default, yes, if we have a good enough reason to do so. And there's not anybody in the conversation to say to the experts, hey, you're not following the ethos of this language. Here are the reasons why we shouldn't be doing this. And it's arguably, I'm someone that could have done that, but there was zero chance I was wading into that mess of a discussion. I was protecting my own time, because it was never going to be valuable for me to comment on, in that conversation, because that was unhealthy nonsense. And I just got done recovering from many years of burnout. I'm not going to do that again for a community of people that refuse to figure out what their problems are or think about the world outside of themselves. No. They are so insular focused. And that's what's apparent in the way they talk to people, that they think they're gods of Go or something. And they might not actually think that, but that's the impression I get from the way they behave. I'm not going to participate. And I'm sure there's lots of people that look at that and are no. That would have brought up this type of point of hey, there's going to be pain here. But I'm not going to write a whole essay about how there's going to be pain here and put it in the issue queue for them to tell me, well, we're not convinced that this is actually a thing. I'm just not going to say it in the first place because I know that's what they're going to say. They're going to say, well, we think we found some random data on the internet that we didn't even scrutinize in any way, shape, or form, and didn't even take the time to understand if it was appropriate to use, to say this is why you're wrong. They've done that too many times. I'm not going to fight you on your bad statistics and your inability to do math properly. I've got other things to do. I'll talk about it on this podcast because this is content and this is I control, and you can't kick me out of my own stuff. But I'm not going to walk into your space and spend my time commenting if I don't have a belief that you're actually going to listen to me or that I will be treated well or respected. I have zero belief that they are going to treat me well in there, since I am a person that likes to dissent. I'm a person that likes to play devil's advocate. And what I see is when people do that in there, all at once up is they get frustrated, and then someone calls them out for being frustrated.
And they ban them. No, they don't always ban them.
If you do it too much, then you do risk getting banned. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know.
But if people like me who have a voice, who can articulate things well, don't want to participate because of the toxicity, there's no amount of emoji voting that's going to fix that. There's no amount of we'll have more things, we'll add more trusted gophers that's going to fix that. And if they're not going to sit down and actually think about themselves as the problem, right, there was very little admission in that proposal or in the talk that the actual problem here is them. No. They said, oh,
or at least not in totality, but at least
working.
some recognition of it. Like some, yeah.
There was basically, for my recollection of it, no accountability. There was no, we have failed you. There was no, we put a process in place and it failed. There was no even throwing the last person under the bus, which is the classic thing, which is at least some form of accountability for the system of the last person messed this up and now we're trying to figure out how to fix it. There was the Go proposal process works very well. We're just trying to refine it, which is honestly an insane thing to say when you're like, we have a giant backlog that's going 23% year over year and a giant pile of stuff that's unimplemented and we have no idea how to dig ourselves out of it. Like that, the whole statement of the proposal does not match with this system is working. And like, that is a form of dishonesty. And if we're actually, again, going to adhere to this code of conduct we put in, that should be a COC violation. You are being blatantly dishonest. Why is that person not getting banhammered? Well, obviously they're not going to banhammer Austin, but like, why is that person not getting held to account? We still got this picky and choosy system for enforcing the code of conduct, right? So like, there is not accountability, which means that people like me are not going to participate because I'm not going to be the next Pierre Morgan. I'm not going to tie myself to this language. I think there's people like you, Matt, that also are not going to tie themselves to this language, are not going to invest in this language, because why would you? Why would you invest in something that they're so willing to say we're going to ban you forever from because you decided to participate in discourse in a way they didn't like because they were so insufferable for years? Why would you? Why would any of us? We're not going to do that. So it's like you're sitting here being like, woe is me, we have a big backlog and everything's broken and I don't get why. And then you write 5,000 words of utter garbage. Like I'm sorry.
Ooh, we got Kris triggered. I love it.
It offends the part of me that spent so long studying leadership and getting good at digging into like what makes a good leader, that someone would write 5,000 words of utter nonsense and terrible process design and do things like invoke Brooks' law in one of the most egregious ways I've seen it invoked in a long time, to be like, of course we can't do the obvious thing of just like adding more people, even though like actual communication theory and like parliamentary theory would tell you that having more people does make it so you can have a quorum that you can meet more easily, so you can meet more often and actually come to decisions. Like, it's just so wrong on so many levels. It's so annoying. Like that part of me that loves process and process design is so offended that someone who is supposedly so smart can write something so stupid.
Jamie and I are communicating telepathically right now.
Emoji voting? Are you
Jamie,
kidding
save
me?
us.
Are you...
Save him, Jamie. Bring him back, please.
Sorry.
Maybe you can reason with him. No, I'm not saying that in a bad way. I get your frustration.
I'm excited for a blog post later today announcing Brand Go, the new fork of Go.
Oh man.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. No,
it comes back to like
God.
People that build the thing are not always the best equipped to be a leader of the thing. And like people that are given positions of power are not always good leaders. And like a good leader is one that can properly delegate when necessary, because you have a finite amount of bandwidth and you need to delegate and you need to trust, but you also need to be honest and vulnerable and say, hey, like I messed up here, or we messed up here, and here's how we're going to try to correct it. And you have to be a member of your community, not a like, above your community, I guess. You know what I mean? And we don't really have that right now in the Go community. And I don't want to say this in a way where it's like, I think the Go team are bad people or what. I don't like, this is not an attack of people's character. It's just that we have to be honest with ourselves and say the best software engineers are not always the best leaders, and vice versa, and some other combination of that. And that's why we have a collective of people to move the language forward. We don't just need software engineers to move a language forward. We need feedback from the practitioners that are using this language to move it forward. Like, I don't care how technically superior the new UUID package can be if the API surface sucks. You know, I mean, maybe sucks is a hard word, but like, if we have a customer saying, or if we have users saying like, hey, this new API service is not going to pull me away from Google UUID. Here's why. Why are we shipping the UUID package then? Like, let's hear that. Let's talk about that. Because maybe we can expand the API service. Maybe there's something we've missed. But I don't see that getting the proper level of nuanced discussion it needs to. And also, I will admit that I don't favor discussions that go on and on and on either. So I do like to come to a consensus and having a way to get there. Maybe sometimes like with an authority figure, or maybe sometimes not. But we're just not. I guess what I'm trying to say is we're leaving things open. Like there are open. Like if this were a pull request and you leave comments, there is unresolved discussions, and we merge the pull request, and that bothers me.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jamie, go. No, get Kris calm. Get him calm. We got him. Get him calm. Keep going.
I guess one of the things that, like, okay, what are the actionable steps that they could take right now to right the storm, get us into a better place, aside from someone forking it and taking it over?
I mean, I assume that's a question. So I would say, I don't think there's anything they can do in the near term that will fix this problem. I think it is damage that's been done over the last, let's just say 8+ years of systematically, maybe not systematically, at least systemically driving people out of this community. And we need to find a way to get those people back. And I guess the most concrete thing they could do, right? If I were to sit down with Austin, if I were to give them some advice on what the good next step would be, it would be to write maybe it's a blog post or something, basically saying, hey, the current process isn't working, and we've tried many different ways of fixing it. And this new proposal I wrote has many deficiencies in it that we need to figure out how to resolve. So instead of iterating on that, we're going to put a ask out to the community to help answer some of the open questions that exist right now. We got to figure out, like, what would get you to participate more in discussions? Where do you see the problems? You also put an ask out to the community. We need people to help triage this giant backlog of stuff. Not necessarily make the decision about whether something moves forward or not, but just figure out, is this thing worth having open? And then also put a call out to gather people that want to do information triage. Because I think the biggest problem at the moment is that anybody who wants to participate in the proposal process has to deal with GitHub and its obnoxious way of surfacing information, right? If you wanted to go today and ask, I'm interested in this general area of stuff, what are some proposals that I could participate in? How do you even start to figure that out? How do you start to understand what is out there being discussed? You have to, you really, the only option right now is for you to completely immerse yourself in the Go proposal process, right? You got to be like writing your own GitHub app that listens to all of the things coming through, maybe write some LLM infrastructure that can analyze what's coming through, and then have that surface to you. Hey, here's some proposals that are actually with the thing or like in the topic that you care about. Give them a read, right? I don't think anybody wants to do all that work. So it's like a good thing would be for either the Go team to build a better information surface, which is sort of in this proposal in there, like a kind of dashboardy thing. Like we should go build that. Like that should be a primary thing, because then at least you would have the ability to surface the information so that people could participate again. Because even the proposal itself only has like 10 or 15 contributors on it, right? Like when you're talking about a community that's 2 million plus people, right? When you're talking about a community where even the developer survey, the voluntary survey has thousands of people participating, the fact you're in the low double digits for something that is reasonably this impactful for the community is a really strong signal that there is something inherently wrong with the approach that's been taken. So it's the advice I would give is stop trying to fix the process and step back and ask, what is the actual problem? Because it seems like there's an assumption that the problem is simply the throughput of getting something from somebody opens a proposal to a decision being made, even though we have evidence that it's much, much broader than that. Did that answer your question?
I think so. And I do very much hope the Go team are listening. I mean, I don't know how much they do listen to some of these podcasts and some of the community discussion, but yeah, I think if for instance they go ahead with how things are and they continue as it is without necessarily taking on this sort of feedback, it will be interesting to see what happens to the community. And again, like whether people will just move on to other languages, whether you'll just get to the point where you're like, I just won't engage at all with upstream and I'll continue using it but not be happy about that. And that is also a shame. I don't know. Or yeah, like as we've joked, like at some point there could be a fork that maybe that helps. And like we've seen this with things like the IOJS fork of Node, that helped.
Yeah.
Because it did actually lead to some of those conversations happening. And so maybe at some point that could be something that helps. Or maybe this is an opportunity where the Go team will respond to that and take some steps to help, and it doesn't need to get that bad. But yeah.
Yeah. I think I wish I had more faith that the people on the Go team could correct their behavior. But at this point, after this much time, I don't have that faith. I can't give them the benefit of the doubt anymore. Which is honestly like why I don't participate in their spaces. Because like, again, I'm like a black queer person. Like, I'm not gonna go participate in a space where I see like white straight dudes being disrespected hilariously. Like, that's just a hard no for me. And it shows up, right? It shows up all over the place where it's just like, yeah, we're pulling teeth trying to get people that should be participating to participate. And I do lay the blame on that at this point, Russ and Austin. Like, and I know I don't think they see it as their job to do this. I certainly, from having conversations with people, don't think Russ ever saw it as his job to make sure the community is like welcoming and warm for people. He saw it as his job to be like, I'm the technical leader of Go. Like the technical excellence of Go is the main thing that I care about. And that's how we got into this mess. I think that the reason I came to this language was for this community and for the vibrance to the language that the community brought that came through dissent but consensus, right? Again, the entire idea of Go Fumped, right? There is something that I think a lot of us don't like in Go Fumped. There's usually one or two, maybe more things that we don't like about the standard way that Go formats things. And yet, we all run on our code, right? All of us sit there and we say, I don't like where these brackets go, but that's how it is. So I'm just gonna do it. I don't like some aspect. There's like people, I don't like some aspect of this thing, but hey, I'm still gonna use this thing. Because we can recognize that there's levels to how we feel about things. There's the I care about this thing a lot, it's going to take a lot to move me, and there's things that I care about a little, and I will just put up with it. And does not feel to me that the Go team is very good at understanding that and properly engaging with people with that understanding.
I'd agree with
So
that.
I just
Like,
they got to do work to win.
yeah. I'd agree with that, just on the premise of like, the data says this. Okay, but what about the data of someone coming to the discussion and writing a long comment on it? Like, that means this person cares a lot, right? Like if someone took time out of their day to say, hey, I see a proposal that I'm interested in, I'm going to write a comment about it because I see it going in a direction I don't love, and here's why. And then that comment gets dismissed with the data doesn't agree with you. That's a horrible way to build a community or keep a community going. And like, imagine, like I said this earlier, imagine that's my biggest gripe personally. And that's what makes me not want to participate in the community, because like, clearly you're calling for discussion on the proposal, but only if the discussion aligns with your data and your you have a preconceived notion of this proposal. And if the discussion dissents from that, that's going to get shut down. But if we were to do this with our customers for our product, imagine if our customers came to us and said, hey, I saw that you were like, doing this, you're talking about doing this feature, that's going to really negatively impact us. And like, we might not be able to renew with you if you go through with this. Here's why. And imagine we said to the customer, like, oh, bye. Data doesn't agree with you. You suck. Okay, you just burned that bridge. You know what I mean? They're never coming back to you again. They're going to go find a new like product to buy or whatever. And you didn't even like hear them. You know what I mean? You didn't even hear them. You just dismissed them. You didn't say, oh, okay, can you tell me more about like where that's a problem? Maybe we can like understand that. And then you get that information. And then if you want to then say, this really isn't aligning where we're trying to take the product, so let's figure out a way to like offboard you or something. That's fine, because you're at least respecting the customer and saying, hey, actually, like that's not where we're taking this company anymore. I know that impacts you. Let's figure something out to make the transition smoother for you, because I don't want to just like peace out and leave you hanging. That shows like you ever walk away not getting what you wanted but feeling okay because like you were heard. That's what you would feel there. You know what I mean? And that feels nice. Like there's been people that I can disagree with and that I like want to argue with, but then you have a nice discussion and you walk away disagreeing, but you're like, wow, I had a good discussion there. Even though we still don't agree, like that was fine. Like we're cordial. That's missing. Like that is missing from the Go community discussion stuff. And even in Slack, like Slack, the Go for Slack is just is an advertisement message board at this point. It's not a discussion based community. And like part of that is because that code of conduct gets wielded as a weapon and we're not able to be our true vulnerable selves there. And like part of that is that, but part of that's also the same behavior that we see on the proposal discussions. And that's a shame. Like I would love for someone to come and tell me like, Matt, you wrote this Kubernetes thing and it sucks for this reason. And like, why didn't you think of this? I'd love to have that discussion with people because I'm not God. You know what I mean? Like I need your feedback as the user. When I wrote something, even if I have AI to assist me, when I wrote things, I didn't have all the context from the user. I'm only one user, So I need the community to help me make the product that I'm trying to build for you better. Isn't that what we want? Like, isn't that what Go wants? Don't you want to get feedback from your users and say like, where does Go suck? How can we make it better? Where is it great? What can be like? Don't we want that stuff? Shouldn't we welcome that discussion, even if it feels bad to hear it? And maybe that's part of the problem is that they're developers have this sort of weird mindset sometimes where they think the code is their baby and they're emotionally attached to it. And like, you can't separate feedback from the product with feedback from yourself. And all of that combines into getting into the situation where it's my way and not your way. Like I can't hear your proposal or I can't hear your discussion because you made me feel bad. But it's like, I didn't make you feel bad. I'm saying that Go Fumped falls down here and it's impacting me negatively. I'm not saying Go Fumped sucks. You know what I mean? Like that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying this sucks. I'm saying it sucks for me in this use case. And I'd love to understand if that's something we can like fix, or can we entertain the discussion of possibly fixing this? And that just doesn't happen. Like not at least in the way it should.
Yeah, I think
I should probably get out of here in a minute, but
yeah. No, I think that really on balance, I'm certainly not going to do the thing that I'm criticizing other people being. Like, my mind is not made up of just like, I'm just not going to participate in the Go community, right? It's also not made up that like my perspective of things is like the correct one. I do think that what I have experienced is real. I think what a lot of people have experienced is real. What I've read in these issues is real, but it's only a fraction, right? There's like 80,000 issues or more, right? There's a lot of issues there. There's like 10,000, there's like 6,000 proposals that have been ever put out there. So it's like, for me, I know my next step is sitting down and actually analyzing and seeing like, is my perception here right? Or am I just seeing a small part of a much larger thing? And for the most part, the Go team is like productive in conversations with people. My hypothesis is very much that they are not. And the random samplings of things I've seen is they are not. But also they are not a singular entity, right? There are, like, this is the thing that is frustrating about the first round of We Need a Better Proposal process, is that there were a lot of people that were engaging with the old proposal process in good faith, right? I mean, famously, like Robert Griesemer with Try, and like they were like, we're going to do this, and then had some talks with people like Bill Kennedy, and we're like, actually, no, we're going to retract this, right? So like that process worked well until Rust shoved modules through it and self-accepted it, and then just completely went around the whole thing, and then a little while later declared it was broken. And it's like, it's not broken, you broke it, right? It was fine. Like, you did the wrong thing. Everybody else was mostly being fine. And I think that's still true to today, right? Like, I see, for instance, the proposals that Alan Donovan puts up are usually really great. And a lot of the work that Alan Donovan has done has been in that ethos of the language and moving it forward, right? Again, I will always point out the analysis framework that we have in Go is probably the best thing that has been added to it, and best thing that's been added to Go in the last decade, right? The ability to do static analysis so easily and cheaply and deeply is truly amazing, and sits with things like Go Fumped, and sits with the other great things about Go that made it into the language that exploded into popularity. But that is so overshadowed by giant blunders like modules, or like this arduous and just obnoxious proposal process, right? It's just so much of the discourse drowns out those truly amazing things that we've been doing, and so much of the focus isn't on that truly amazing stuff as a result. So I think there are definitely things that are good here. This is not all bad. This is not everybody that's with Go leadership is terrible. It's just like there's evidence that some people are behaving very poorly, and that needs to get surfaced and shown, and at least put out there enough so they have a chance to maybe correct their behavior, or at least so we as a community decide what we want to do about it. Because it feels right now like people just are continually walking away from Go, or if they're not walking away from Go, it's gone from, I'm really enthusiastic about this language, to this is one of many languages I use, not because I want to have many languages I use, but because I don't trust this group of people to not mess this language up. Right? I need to protect myself and my career because I don't want to put my faith into this. Which is basically, to pull from like an Oxide thing that Brian Cantrell says a lot, it's like when you force having dual suppliers. And it's like, no, you should want to go deep with one supplier, because then you can really integrate what they do into your stack. And you should want to go really deep with one language so you can integrate it into your ecosystems and get the best out of it. But if that language's leadership doesn't seem like they're going to be, and it doesn't seem like they're making good choices, then you do need to dual source. And that just makes everything messier. So I didn't expect to spend 2 hours on this topic.
I was going to say, you did really well to not bring up modules until like 5 minutes.
This conversation was never not going to have modules in it. Let's just be clear. I blame Matt. I blame Matt. It's all your fault. We were doing fine until you got fired up, and then you fired me up. So like,
I mean, I don't want to come off as like a Debbie Downer, and I'm mad about everything else. I'm not. I'm really not. Like, I'm a reasonable person to discuss things with. I don't like. I just want transparency and honesty. That's it. Like, I want to be able to say, like, you know, I want to be able to go up to someone and say, like, you suck, here's why. And they say, yeah, Matt, you suck, here's why. And then we fight it out and then we become best friends. I want that. You know what I mean? Like, just normal Discord, because that's how life works, man. I don't want to go to a community and be like, I am Matthew and I'm from Oxide and I like represent myself this way. And I'm trying to be so cordial and I'm not trying to be my genuine self because I know we're in this public place and blah, blah. Like, I don't want that. I just want the real, like, bro, tell me why this is bothering you. Matt, this bothers me because you made this stupid commit the other day that broke my workflow. Great, man. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Like, let's talk about how we could fix it. That's all I want. Just like, but like, let's just bypass all that bullshit and get there. And like, I feel in the Go community, I can't bypass all that bullshit to get there. I can't just go plainly say like, hey, this sucks and here's why it's hurting me. Because then, oh, what? You can't tell people that their work sucks. That's not the code of conduct. Like, why are you being so abrasive? And then people fail to hear the point where it's like, are you incapable of reading the full context here? Like, sure, I said it in an upset way, or someone said it in an upset way or not, but can you not get the point still? Like, of course, people that are frustrated are going to communicate in a frustrated way. Telling them, please don't communicate in a frustrated way, it's not going to help them. They're already frustrated. But it's still on you. And I think Mitchell does a really good way of doing this. And he's not in the Go community much anymore, but like, I think he does a really good job of this. And he says that even on his posts. Even when people like yell at you about something, it's still on you to find out what they're really mad about. So that way you can understand it and go. And he does a good job about that for a Ghosty project and other things he works on. And like, why can't we just do that overall? Why do we have to have our feelings hurt when we say something, like when there's an element of truth there? Like, let's find that element of truth and let's unpack it. But maybe I'm just overthinking it. I don't know.
I mean, you're not wrong. It's performative civility. I've said this multiple times before. It's the same thing as when, because this happened to Go, this was happening everywhere, like 10 years ago, when everybody ran around and was like, oh, we can't have blacklist and whitelist anymore. Oh, we have to get rid of master slave. Oh, it can't be master, it needs to be main, right? All of this performative support, performative allyship. Meanwhile, you put a code of conduct in place that says civility is important. I think most of us know that means like waspy American civility, right? Because, when you talk about swear words, those swear words are not like the British swear words. They're the American swear words. They're not the Australian swear words. They're American swear words, right? So it's like, oh yeah, the performative civility. We need to be kind to each other while writing in a very fancy way to go F yourself. But it's like, well, they didn't actually say go F yourself. So they're not actually violating the code of conduct. Right. And again, when I see that as someone that existed in multiple cultures that communicate in somewhat incompatible ways, like there's stuff I can say to my gay friends that I will not say to my straight friends or even to my black friends. Right. Like there's different ways we communicate in different spaces. And there is no recognition or understanding of that in the Go community right now. And there hasn't been for a very long time. I still find it very offensive when anybody says family friendly in the Go community, because that is a very homophobic dog whistle. And there's people that are like, well, I didn't know that. I'm like, well, then maybe don't make your entire thing about being civil. If you're going to say, I'm only going to be civil if it's with the normative culture that the people in power understand. And but like you can't say somebody's work sucks is there's people that are junior who, in my mind, junior just means probably some person of color or some woman, because those people have been prevented by me from coming into this industry, that might have their feelings hurt by you saying that their work sucks, even though they've had to work harder than I will ever work in my life to get to just where they are. And they've been through so much worse. But if they hear that their work sucks, that might scare them away, because if I was them and my misunderstanding of how they are, I would leave because someone said my work sucks. right? It's simultaneously completely centering themselves while also trivializing the very people that they purport to want to support and have in the community, which again is why I don't want to enter that very hostile white space that is the GitHub issues of the Go project. Because I sit there and I'm like, this is a very American white discourse space. Even Eastern European people get like bounced out of there or get like, you're being incivil, right? Like anybody that doesn't fit that nice little like New England or Californian view of, well, we got to do identity politics and all of this, and if it doesn't fit that perfectly, it's like, no. If you're a black person like I am, that's just like, I am not beneath you. They don't like that. They don't like when people like that enter that space. This industry as a whole doesn't like it when people like that enter that space, but that's a whole different conversation. But it's like, that's a thing you got to go fix. They're not going to fix it because it's core to who they think they are, but like, it's frustrating. So I agree with you, Matt. This is the fact that we can't just communicate in the way we would naturally communicate is another reason why we don't want to participate. Because I don't want to have to spend a half an hour editing my thing, the comment I want to write.
Yep.
So that I don't get hit with the "you're being incivil," because I communicate in ways that are sometimes abrasive. That is literally some of the hallmarks.
I got this at HashiCorp, man. Like I was, I communicated, I said some things, and like sometimes I use the wrong words, and okay, you could always tell the person that communicated poorly to communicate better, and you can say like, you shouldn't have said that word, or you shouldn't have said it this way. You were very frustrated. You're very talkative. You could always blame the person who's communicating. But then what about the people who are listening? Like, can't you read through the lines too? Do you go watch movies or watch videos or whatever, and you're like, oh wow, I like didn't get that plot line because they said a word I didn't agree with. Like, are you that dumb that you can't really understand the point even through some vagueness or frustration or whatever? Like, because that's a you problem. And then at HashiCorp, we had this too. And my manager and whoever, they would come to me like, oh, you're being abrasive or whatever. I'm like, but I'm pissed off too, because I'm tired of telling you people the same thing again and again and again, and then nothing's changing. So yeah, I am a little mad. And yeah, I am going to communicate this way, because when I try to communicate nicely, you didn't hear me either. So now I'm not being heard. So sure, I am going to get a little mad, but also we value diversity here. Where's the diversity of communication? Like, where's that? Why is it always speak better and never listen better? Like, it's annoying, and I see it in open source and whatever communities as well, and it frustrates me. If you leave an issue on the Terraform provider for Oxide and you say, Matt, you're an idiot, like you did this, I'm not gonna be like, you're banned, bro. I'm gonna be like, can you just tell me what I did? Like, as long as you give me enough information so I can see like, oh, okay, I get it. I don't care if you call me a moron or an idiot. I don't give a shit. I just don't care. I do want to see if I could pull out what you're getting at though, because that's my responsibility as the maintainer of that project. I don't care if you hurt my feelings or try to hurt my feelings. Like, but I do want to know what you're trying to say, because clearly something frustrated you enough to get here. I just wish more people can separate that and do that personally.
Healthy discourse does not mean policing people's language. Healthy discourse means that people understand the rules of how to engage and do not feel like it's a burden for them to do so. I think that's my problem as of right now, is that like we don't have healthy discourse because entering a Go space requires you to adhere to a culture that is pretty foreign from yours to allow people in power to be comfortable. And I find that deeply offensive.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, people like, where's all the black folk? Why are all these people leaving? Why can't we keep, it's like, cause you're asking me to do a whole bunch of work so that you can feel comfortable, so your feelings don't get hurt. Meanwhile, I've spent my whole career, my whole life fighting this nonsense, right? There's that thing about like, there's, white people in America sometimes experience like a little bit of racism and they're like, oh my God, this is terrible. And meanwhile, that's like the mildest of mild days for a black person. It's like, yeah, you're conveniencing yourself to inconvenience me when I've been inconvenienced the whole time, which honestly, if that's what you want to do, cool, bro, go do that. But then don't turn around and make it like seem like you're trying to build some inclusive community, because you're not. Like, the Go community is not inclusive. No. They don't even know how to start talking about being inclusive. They are performatively inclusive. They are what they think in their mind is like, this is what we got to do to be inclusive, not let's actually figure out how to be inclusive of folks. Because if they were, I think there's a lot of people that no longer participate in Go that probably would still be here. And I'm not going to put words in those people's mouths. They had all of their reasons for why they are no longer part of this. But I would be very surprised if there wasn't at least a part of it that's, I don't want to perform your game anymore. I just want to be able to talk. And I don't want to have to worry about what you're going to do if you don't like what I have to say. So, all right. This has been going on for a while.
End it.
Thanks again, Jamie and Matt, for joining. Do you have any last words before we close this out?
I'm looking forward to you trying to edit me out. Like the 3 minutes I've spoken. It's just like,
I should have just not arrived. I shouldn't have joined this podcast and let you and Jamie have at it, because clearly I got off the rails too.
Again,
no, I've appreciated. I've appreciated hearing both of your thoughts, because as I say, like, I haven't engaged too much with the community and with the upstream project, so it is always interesting to get more of that view from people who have tried to engage and have felt that issue. So yeah.
Matt, do you have any final words?
Just to advocate for people to speak more plainly, be open to changing their mind. Like, it's not a problem for you to have one opinion one day and one opinion another day after you've learned new information. Like, if you're constantly flip-flopping, obviously there's probably something there, but to naturally change your opinion is normal. And I think we should encourage that more. And just because what we say on this podcast today doesn't mean like tomorrow we wouldn't want to try to join the community again. Like that's the whole point of being human, right? We're not static for our whole lives. So there are there are issues with the Go community today and the proposal and all this stuff that makes me not want to go there. Like I don't have any incentive to go comment on some of these things. But if some barriers were removed, I'd change my mind and go back. So I'm open to that.
I said you did comment on that UUID proposal. So
yeah, I didn't like that proposal personally, but that is a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Wow. All right. Well, we got a little heated. We had disagreement for the first time in a while. That was good. We that was such a mild disagreement too. We are incapable of disagreeing with each other. It's because we're so good at cohesion, Matt. That's our problem. We're good at coming to consensus on things. We are embodying precisely what we have asked the Go community to embody. So you need a good example, look no further than Fallthrough.
And with that,
but viewer / listener, I have to do an actual outro. Thank you. So viewer / listener, thank you for listening to this rather long episode. And we're getting into the length issue again. This editing, it's going to be so much fun. Thank you, Matt. Thank you again for giving us a 2-hour episode. But let us know your thoughts. You know, we want to engage openly with our community. So yeah, hit us up in Go for Slack and Changelog Zulip. On any social medias, mail us something. I'm still super happy we got a postcard the other day. That was super awesome. Thanks again, Matt. Not you, Matt. Listener Matt. It was not you. You don't live in Florida. You live in New Jersey. Thanks again for that. So yeah, send us mail. And with that, I'm going to end this like rambly outro. This episode of Fallthrough was hosted by Kris Brando with co-hosts Jamie Tana and Matthew Sanabria. This episode of Fallthrough was produced by Kris Brando, and our beats are by Breakmaster Cylinder. Huzzah!
Huzzah!
Huzzah!